So now we're on the final part of our ABCDE framework, which is E. Everything comes together in E in terms of power calculations, system design, and this E is so important because it's going to act as the roadmap to ensure that we have a correctly powered and a correctly wired system. And it's also going to build on our circuitry template that we were doing earlier in C, where we document all the calculations needed to ensure that we have a robustly designed LED lighting, low voltage LV wiring system. We're going to go to the iPad and fill out a few details and look at a few examples. You have to recall all the calculations we did for power calculations, for power supply calculations, inclusive of power factor and voltage drop calculations. Just to give you some quick recaps before we get in, some rule of thumbs. If we're doing residential power supplies, we tend to only load the power supply only 80%. If we're doing a commercial project, we tend to do only 70% of the power supply's max rating. If we're doing an extended commercial or a environment that has a lot of heat for whatever reason, there might be a lot of machinery or a lot of equipment around generating excessive heat. Like if you put a power supply behind a refrigerator because that was the only available space in that installation, you want to drop the operating temperature of the power supply to compensate for the extra heat being given off by the refrigerator. Even though it's not an ideal situation, it tends to happen. So on those rare scenarios or extended use, like in casinos, we want to load the power supply only 50%. I believe we have a casino going on over 10 years without failure at this moment. And that's because we spec the system correctly, so the system lasts. The other thing in the circuitry is you want to remember your different wire gauges, when to use a different wire gauge. You want to remember your wire types, when you should use the appropriate wire type. And then we're going to calculate what's the appropriate wire gauge to use. Generally, things that are close by, you would use anywhere between 22 to 18 gauge. Things that are farther, especially if you're doing a centralized wiring system, you want to utilize lower gauge wires such as 12 gauge, 14 gauge, 16 gauge, or 1.5, 2.5 millimeter squared wires. So let's get into some examples and let's see how this whole thing comes together. So that wraps it up for our ABCDE framework. And this is a valuable framework. Whether you're an architect or an interior designer or an engineer, you're going to learn how to use these principles to ensure things are being thought about in a structured way to achieve your goals in lighting. So whether it's the wiring detail that's going to impact the design, whether it's the design detail, whether you need to put a note, extra brightness required because I have dark matte surfaces, whatever you need to do to improve the output of your project, this is going to be the framework to follow. Also, if you're an installer, an electrician, or an engineer, these frameworks help you think about the calculations and the power sides that are required. We have been on countless installations where we've seen installation errors, we've seen wiring errors, we've seen design errors, and this framework is meant to help all of you. It's been the guiding light in our business and has helped us navigate a lot of scenarios. So we're happy to share it with you, and this is one of the main points of our course that I believe that is going to automatically level up the way you approach your lighting projects and your lighting installation projects. The next part of the course, we're going to move on to more practical skills. We're going to run through some installation fundamentals, and then we're going to build on that in live scenarios on different sites. So we look forward to seeing you here, and thank you for making it through the course this far.
Let's transfer this stuff